All right, students, hello and welcome to CHRTC 309. This is Sociology of Youth and Religion offered through St. Joseph's College. I'm very excited to have you all, just looking at the class list. It's a really great kind of enrollment for the course, and I'm really excited to be offering it again. I offered this course last in 2020, in the winter of 2020, in the before time, or the just before the before time, and then the beginning of COVID. So I'm really excited to be teaching it again here online, a little bit different, but I'm so happy to be teaching this topic, and I think you're going to find it really, really interesting. All right, for those who don't know me, my name is Dr. Jeff Broussard. You don't have to call me Dr. Broussard. Professor Broussard, or just plain old Jeff is great with me. I am an associate instructor in the Department of Sociology, and I moonlight here and there over at St. Joseph's College as well. I teach a few classes: Catholicism and pop culture, sociology of Christianity. I know, just looking at the class list, a few people have taken some of these classes with me as well. So I am, mostly in sociology, which is where I do most of my work. And then I do some here at St. Joseph's College because it allows me to basically teach a few topics that are a little bit nicher, that I think are really interesting, but that don't fit into sociology's kind of curriculum as well. So St. Joe's offers me the ability to do that. Um, yeah, if you're looking for me in person, my office is in Torrey 1-62D. So I'm inside the Center for Criminological Research. So if you head almost, on the first floor to the north end of Torrey, kind of more on the right side of the north side rather than the left side, I am in Center for Criminological Research, which is 1-62, and I'm in a little office with windows 62D. So that's where you can find me. I'm on campus every day. So if you need to reach me, right, I don't have official office hours, but I'm happy to meet with you anytime if you want to go over something, if you have some questions, if you want to go over exams or quizzes or anything like that, or just delve deeper into a topic, you have more questions and you just want to delve deeper, feel free, make an appointment. Like I said, I am here every day. I work long hours on campus, so I'm here a lot, and I'm happy to accommodate you by appointment. So just let me know. And jrbrassard@ualberta.ca or jrb5@ualberta.ca, they go into the same inbox. That's where you can reach me. Okay, so I took my silly face off the slide so you don't have to look at me making weird faces into the camera. It's always a little awkward doing the recorded stuff. You think I would have gotten used to it during COVID, but never quite. All right, so for the readings, there's kind of two ways that you can access them, right? So there is a reader. It's a PDF file that I put together for this class. Now, typically, I am supposed to get these printed at the bookstore and you go buy a reader, but, don't tell anyone, please, because I'll get in trouble. To heck with all that. I have a link to it up on the e-class, so you can just download it, and a lot of it is photocopies from books, so you might have to like rotate it on a screen or whatever, but you can access most of the readings there. And if you look at the syllabus, anything that says in reader, you'll find there. Anything else, I'm going to put it up on e-class, just so that you can download it and look at it. And so there's a mix, so just kind of keep abreast of what's assigned. The readings, principally out of sociology of religion and sociology of youth. Now, I guess a quick word on the readings. I really think of the readings as something that is kind of for your benefit, right? Something that if you want to explore the topic a little bit deeper, go ahead and do the readings. However, right, the content that you need for the evaluations, which I'll talk about on the next slide, is all in the lectures. So primarily in the lectures, if something's not making sense, you might want to go to those readings because that's where I'm taking a lot of the information from. They may offer you something that I am not offering. So go ahead and take a look at those. They're available for you. But because we're not doing sort of essays in the course, and again, I'll get to evaluation in a sec, I'm not going to be testing out of like deep things that I pull out of like very niche parts of those readings, right? So everything you're going to need to know, you'll be able to put together from the lectures. But if you're interested enough to be taking the course, it's probably worthwhile to delve into it a little bit deeper, and those readings are there for that. They may also help you, when it comes to answering questions, especially on the midterm and final. So do, take advantage of them. But again, it's not like I'm gonna be testing on, very niche things that are in there. So, take that for what it is.
All right, so this class is asynchronous, right? So basically what that means, if you haven't taken an online class before, and I'm sure you all have, but if you don't know, basically we do not have an official meeting time. Basically, I've created recordings for this class that cover the material, and you get to watch them whenever you want. Pretty cool, right? You get to fit this into your otherwise busy lives, so hopefully it is really convenient for you. I will say my experience with these kinds of classes before suggests that I should tell you this. Try to keep up with them as much as possible, right? Try to find a time in the week to watch the videos. What I've seen in the past is obviously people get behind on them, and then there's a quiz coming or there's a midterm coming, and they try to watch all of the videos and pack it all in, and it goes spectacularly badly. So don't do that. You will end up in trouble. Now, that said, I've tried to design around that a little bit by putting the quizzes, right, the short quizzes for the class kind of in between the midterms so that no one can wait, 6 or 8 weeks and try to catch up on 6 or 8 weeks of material. Still, you could theoretically find yourself in a situation where you're trying to cover 3 weeks of material, and I don't think that's going to go well, right? I think you're going to have a hard time synthesizing that much information. Maybe you can. Don't recommend it. Try not to do that. Basically, what I'm doing in terms of the material itself is I'm going to try to post just short of 3 hours of material a week, right? A normal class is, basically 150 minutes or 160 minutes, roughly, depending on whether your class is a Tuesday, Thursday, or a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I'm going to try to post around 150 minutes a week. I might go slightly over, but I will never go beyond 160 minutes, right? So this is going to be roughly the same amount of material, maybe a little bit less as your standard 3-credit course, right? So don't worry, I could go on and on about any of these things. I'll try to contain myself. And as I've been recording, right, sometimes I go back and erase a whole bunch of stuff I did because I'm like, yeah, this is going to end up being way too long. So that said, right, I'm going to try to keep it really close. It doesn't always work out exactly perfectly, but I'll do my very best to not burden you with a ton of extra material. All right, so in terms of evaluations for the course, pretty straightforward, and you can see the dates up on the slide here. We've got 2 short quizzes, kind of, at different points in the course, like, about a month in, and then, into the beginning of the third month. A midterm, here in October. A final exam, which I have set now as December 16th. And every, 10 times, out of our 14 weeks of the course, there are kind of discussion posts, right? So basically through the semester, you need to post 10 posts or replies through the term, and each of these are worth 1.5%, right? Total of 15% for the course, and they will be built into kind of the weekly modules on Canvas. Okay, so what do these quizzes look like? What do the midterms and final exam look like, and the discussions? So the quizzes, right, they're going to be really quite short, right? So basically, when it comes to the quizzes, it'll be 3 questions, right? 3 short answer questions, very much to test kind of your knowledge of the concepts that we've gone through in the course, right? So not surprisingly, like the first one comes kind of close on the heels of the theories of religion and secularization, right? So we kind of get in and test you, see where your understanding is, and then, if we need to work with individuals to kind of clear up some misconceptions, we can do that from there. Midterm and final exam, right? 5 short answer questions. These may involve, and again, I will give you examples of these as we're coming up to it, some slightly more critical thinking type questions where you may have to kind of try and apply some of what we've learned, right? Describe what you've seen and apply it, make a guess, make a kind of a little bit of an argument. Again, these are not going to be long, right? They're not going to be, essays. A couple, maybe 2-3 paragraphs on these. But again, I will show you what these look like as we go through the term. And as I discussed on the last slide, 10 of the weeks we'll have online discussion forums. And for these, you're required to post a response to the topic question that I post and one response to another student. 200 words for the first part, 100 words for the second part. A lot of times people go way over because people get really into it. So feel free to go bigger, but don't feel like you have to. Now, of course, if you have any questions about any of this, do feel free to either come and see me, send me an email. We can do a Zoom, we can do an in-person meeting, whatever works best for you. I'm always here to answer questions. Okay, so what is this course about, right? What is it really about? It is really an exploration of youth and religion. This is a topic that I'm super passionate about. Obviously, some of you might know I teach and have been teaching sociology of youth in the Department of Sociology for a decade, right? Basically, I started in the winter of 2014, which is the longest I've ever done anything in my entire life. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I've been teaching sociology of youth for a decade here at U of A. And it is, one of my areas of specialization and one of the areas I'm really passionate about in sociology. And in the kind of genesis of that course, one of the things that I noticed after teaching it for a couple of years was that there was no kind of focus anywhere on youth and religion. So there's definitely great research on youth and religion, and we're going to go through a ton of it in this course. But I decided to sort of synthesize that down into a course, right? So that is what this course is, looking at, youth and religion. What does it look like? What's the landscape? Who are, our last two cohorts of young people, millennials and Gen Z? What is their religious kind of life like, if they have any? Have they turned away from religion? All that stuff. And things like impact of social structures, family structure, cultural movements, technology, life experiences, and all sorts of other things on their patterns of belief and belonging. Okay, so how's this going to look? So up to the midterm, we're going to see a few topics. We're going to start with sociological theories of religion. Now, I know some people who've taken this class have either taken, SOS 376, Sociology of Religion, CHRTC 203, Sociology of Christianity, or sometimes both. And to those people, I say, I'm sorry, the first couple weeks are going to be really easy for you because this is all material basically that you've seen before, right? Now, that said, because there's no prereq for the class, I have no certainty that people have any understanding of these theories, so I have to go through them again. So if you took 376 or CHRTC 203, you can probably sort of do a quick review and fast forward through, sociological theories of religion and secularization. It's basically the same material that I've covered in the past. I'm not a one-trick pony, but in terms of this stuff, it doesn't change very much. Okay. After that, we're going to talk about who were the millennials, right? So millennials are still alive, right? Obviously, this is this generation born roughly between 1980 and 1994, 1995. But we're going to talk about who the millennials were, who they are, and kind of what their experience of religion in youth was. Now, the millennials, for the most part, are now in their 30s. The oldest of the millennials are now in their 40s. So it might seem a little bit weird to talk about the millennials in terms of sociology of youth and religion. Now, why am I going to do this? Because this was probably the moment in which these questions really crystallized. For whatever reason, people got really interested in questions of youth and religion kind of around the time the around the late 90s, early 2000s, when the millennials were going through adolescence and into emerging adulthood. So we know a ton about the millennials, right? The millennial generation, we have a bunch of really rich data. And so, while they are different from Gen Z, there's also a lot of consistency. So seeing what we learned about youth and religion from the millennials, I think really interesting and important. And then obviously we're also going to take a look at Gen Z, right? So Gen Z, this generation born roughly between 1995 and maybe about 2010, maybe 2012, depending on where you want to set the boundaries, is really the generation of young people that most of you will belong to. the one that is sort of coming through adolescence now and into emerging adulthood, right? So we're going to talk about them. They're a little bit different than the millennials. The oldest of the millennials are some of the parents of the youngest of Gen Z. And so, we're going to talk about, this world of Gen Z. What do they believe? What's their kind of life like? What are the trajectories they've kind of gone through? Okay, we're going to talk about a few kind of ways that people have tried to describe the belief of millennials and Gen Z. So for millennials, moralistic therapeutic deism. For Gen Z, something called faith unbundled. And then you're going to watch a documentary that came out of, it's really about millennials, out of a big study in the US called the National Study of Youth and Religion, called Soul Searching. And that's going to be part of the material for one particular week, right? It's not going to be in addition to, it'll be like part of essentially the class time. Okay, and then, the religious factors, parents and life experience. Parents are super, super important when it comes to religious transmission and formation. So we're going to spend a fair chunk of time talking about parents. And there's two really great books that have come out in the last 3 years. Both of them led by, my personal spirit animal, Christian Smith, about kind of religious transmission and religious parenting. So we're going to take a look at all of that. Okay, so after that, right, we are going to look at religious education, right? So, we have, in Alberta, in Canada, and then in places in the United States, Catholic and Christian schools. Now, obviously, American Catholic schools are a little bit different from the ones that we find in Canada, principally because they are not funded by the state. But we want to kind of talk about what is the influence of Catholic and Christian schools. Does it lead to a loss of faith? Does it lead to a continuance of faith? At what levels, right? And, while there hasn't been a ton of research on it, we can also sort of bridge this out to, say, other groups now that are forming their own religious schools, Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, and such, right? So definitely we can start doing that. We're going to look at religious summer camps. I mean, there's an odd chance, I think, that some of you have been to a religious summer camp at some point in your life. So we are going to take a look at, is there an impact? Do summer camps do something? Do they improve the odds of someone forming a religious faith, maintaining a religious faith? Do they do anything? Okay. Faith in higher ed, we're going to look at, does going to college or university tend to lead to people abandoning faith? There's been this kind of long-standing belief, especially in certain kind of Christian communities, that, universities were these atheistic, positivist institutions that led to a decline in faith. And we are going to take a look and see if there's any basis to that. Okay. Next one, we're going to look at sex, teenagers, and religion. How do young people in a highly sexualized society, one in which in a lot of cases premarital sex is very much accepted, hookup culture is the norm for a lot of their peers, how do they navigate, questions of sex and religion, right? And we'll look at all sorts of different types, right? Just the merely spiritual but not religious, very religious people, evangelicals, Catholics, the whole shebang, right? And they got some great data on that. Okay. Life outcomes in teenagers and emerging adults. And I will say, again, if you've taken SOS 377, Sociology of Youth, or 376, this will probably be kind of familiar to you because I go over this in great detail. But, when it comes to youth, does being religious have any impact, right? Does it make their lives better, worse, the same, or not? Okay. Kind of ending off the course, we're going to look at, questions of how do young people transitioning, from teens into emerging adults and then into adults, ultimately refine their own kind of religious beliefs and identities into kind of stable adult identities in terms of these things. So we call it religious refinement, and growth, stability, collapse in youth and emerging adults. Like, where are we at, right? And of course, all of this, I guess a couple of things I forgot on the first page, which I didn't put up as points, but are definitely there. We're going to talk about the nuns, this emergence of this particular social phenomenon of NONESs, right? People who have ostensibly no religious identity, and then just the broad religious landscape. All right, and again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me in any way you like, whatever you're most comfortable with. Hopefully you can hear, from my voice. I'm really passionate about this topic. I'm really interested in it, and hopefully I can communicate some of that and some of the really cool information out there about youth and religion to all of you as you work through this course. And any questions, I'm so happy to answer. If you want to come down and have a conversation, you read about faith unbundled and you're like, man, I really want to know more about that, or can you give me more readings? Please give me more work, Professor Broussard. I'm happy to do it. I just, reach out to me, come down to the office, or we can chat on Zoom or by email. I'm busy, but I always find time for students.